So we're doing okay, but we still have more. And even if we're above average this season, it doesn't come close to recovering from the last 3 years. The last time we were above season was December 2010 with the flooding for the Pineapple Express. So that's still possible this spring, unfortunately, but it doesn't help us. So with more of an expertise in water as far as your industry, Mr. Conant, Ernest A. Conant, is the partner with Water, Land, and Environmental Law with Young Woolridge LLP. Mr. Conant graduated from Cal Poly in agricultural management and received his doctorate from Pepperdine Law School. After being admitted to the California State Bar in 1979, Mr. Conant joined Young Woolridge LLP and is now a partner in the firm, serving as chair of its Water and Special Districts Practice Group. Though his professional accomplishments are way too many to list here, Mr. Conant has been recently involved in the development of the Semi-Tropic and Arvin Edison water banking programs, formation of the Kern Water Bank Authority and development of its project, and participation in the ACWA drafting committee assisting with the development of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act of 2014. Please help me welcome Mr. Ernest Conant.
Good morning. So I'm going to discuss generally at a very global perspective where our water comes from, and then highlight a couple of challenges. These are certainly not limited to 2016, but are for the longer term. Basically what we have in California is a water distribution challenge. I think all of you recognize this. That 70% of the precipitation is north of Sacramento, 75% of the demand is south of Sacramento. On average, there's like 200 million acre feet of water that hits the state every year, and about 40% of that is managed. We speak of an acre foot. This is, a football field approximately covered with 1 foot of water. It takes 1 acre foot can take care of the needs of 2 to 4 homes per year, depending on density and climate. It takes about 4 acre feet per acre of water for lawn and turf, and it takes 3 to 4 acre feet per year per acre for cropland in the Central Valley. Of the water that's managed in some fashion that I mentioned a moment ago, about 80 million acre feet. About 46% of that is dedicated to the environment for wetlands and fisheries and wild and scenic rivers. About 43% of the California's managed supply is used for agriculture, and about 11% for urban. When I speak of urban, I'm speaking both of residential and industrial use. And of course, industrial use is the key issue in Kern County, as it helps to keep the oil economy running with steam injection and so on. As you know, we're in an ongoing drought, and as Alina just referred to, this is a historic drought in that in some respects it's the worst since we've been keeping records for about 150 years. But we know from examination of the tree rings that historically there have been even more significant droughts and floods than there have been in the last 150 years that we're more accustomed to. So turning to Kern County, and this is for the San Joaquin Valley portion of Kern County, what we sometimes refer to as the Kern subbasin. About 180,000 acre feet per year are needed for the urban area for municipal and industrial use, and about 2.6 million is used by agriculture. In very general terms, we have about 1 million acres that's either farmed or is in urban use, and it takes about 3 acre feet per acre. And so that's what our demand is, and our basic problem is that it rains on average, Elena, 7 inches a year about? So the balance of over 2.5 feet per acre that's farmed or in cities has to be brought in from somewhere. So looking at our state system, as you know, as you drive up and down the state, you see a lot of canals and other facilities. The basic architecture is that, if I can figure the right button, I guess that's it. Whoop, What? Our, keep hitting the wrong thing here. Our, our reservoirs are located in Northern California, and they have to go through the delta. Still trying to figure out where this, is it the bottom one?
No, right to go forward, and then the right arrow.
Well, what's the pointer?
Laser. The laser is at the top.
Top. That's what I thought. Well, at any rate, I'm not very proficient at this. So our reservoirs are in Northern California. The water has to go through the delta down and then into the pumping plants at the south end of the delta. Then it comes down the California aqueduct. So that's where we get our water from the State Water Project. In addition, we have water that comes from the east side down the Bryant-Kern Canal. But ultimately, that water indirectly comes from the delta also, because it's as a result of an exchange that the Bureau of Reclamation entered into in 1939, whereby it agreed to provide some historic water right holders on the San Joaquin River with a water supply from the delta in exchange for the water they had perfected on the San Joaquin River. And so if something happens to the delta, then both the State Water Project and the Bryant system on the east side are in jeopardy. And that's exactly what has occurred over the last couple of years. So on the right-hand side here, we have the different water supplies. The State Water Project, this is a contract amount, 100 million acre feet per year, but we don't get that every year. In 2014, we got 5%, and last year we got 20%. The Kern River is very volatile, but that's the average supply. The Bryant system is also very volatile. That's the average supply. But both in 2014 and 2015, the Bryant contractors got a zero supply. So then moving on, the water is distributed throughout the throughout the county through various water districts. And this first layer are those that get their water from the State Water Project. The next layer are from the Central Valley Project, the federal contractors, and then lastly from the Kern River. And water is distributed through these various districts. And then within the urban area, we have, you'll see there, it's called Improvement District Number 4 of the Kern County Water Agency, and you see that line on your tax bill. They import water from the State Water Project, which along with water rights that the city of Bakersfield has, provides a pretty ample supply for the urban area. In addition, the Bakersfield area through ID4 has invested heavily in water banks. And so, overall, as compared to other San Joaquin Valley cities, our area is probably in relatively good shape. Looking a little bit at the urban sector, this just shows the population. As you can see, about 3/4 of the population is in the San Joaquin Valley portion of Kern County, and is supplied by water suppliers. There's about 90,000 people that are on either private wells or served by small mutual water companies, and then there's about 150,000 people outside of the valley area. This shows the per capita water consumption demand by service area within the Bakersfield, greater Bakersfield area and surrounding cities. This is a little misleading in that particularly Vaughn Water Company and East Niles have a large number of ranchettes and large lots, and that contributes to the larger per capita water demand for those areas. And then this is a projection of water demand. The 2015 number is not correct. This was prepared before the conservation measures, and that number would be a little bit less than 2014. But as you can see, there has been a reduction as people have cooperated in large part with the calls for conservation as mandated by the governor's executive order. This is a further description of the per capita, the total water usage by the various water suppliers. You can see from this that from 2013 to 2014, water usage went down by 20,000 acre feet, in part because of the call for conservation. So that's a little bit of background of where our water comes from and where it goes and how it's administered. Now I'm going to move on to the two major challenges, and there are a number, but these are the two major challenges that I'll focus on. The first is the delta. This is the area up around Stockton, and water from our reservoirs comes down the Sacramento River, and then it has to go. We basically have a plumbing problem here where the water has to go out towards the ocean, and then it comes back and reverses to where the pumps are. You can see on the bottom of this diagram where the pumps are for the state project and the federal project. And the basic problem is that there has to be significant releases of water out to the delta into the ocean in order to repel salts, and secondly to address issues with endangered species, because through this plumbing system the water flow is reversed in the San Joaquin River, which tends to, among other things, confuse the fish. So they think they're swimming to the ocean, but they're swimming towards the pumps. So that's our major challenge, and it has resulted in, over the years, increased environmental demands in the delta, which have significantly reduced the water supply available from the state project and also the federal projects. And you can see here, putting aside the recent drought, you can see a general decline in the reliability of the water supply from the state water project. This also illustrates this issue I was describing of the need for outflow to address various environmental problems. And this is an example of a period of about a year and a half during this drought period. During that period, about 12 million acre feet flowed into the delta. About 8 million acre feet went out under the Golden Gate. About 1.2 million was used within the delta, which left, you'll see down the lower left-hand corner there, you can't hardly read the one line for the federal project, but left about 2.8 million acre feet available to be exported during that 18-month period, with 8 million acre feet going out to the ocean. So, is there a solution to this? In part, the solution may be what's called the California Water Fix, which is being aggressively pursued by the governor and the administration. And this involves building two large pipelines in excess of 30 feet in diameter, so 3 times the height of this ceiling, under the delta from the Sacramento River about 35 miles south to where the pumps are. And a project similar to this in function was proposed decades ago, and in 1983 there was a referendum, and the people of the state of California voted down DWR, proceeding with what then was called the peripheral canal, which would be a canal that went around the delta to again perform the same function to more efficiently deliver water through the delta to the pumps. So now the proposal, which is supposed to be more acceptable, is to do so with 2 large pipelines going under the delta. The challenge is that it's going to cost a lot of money. The estimate is, $15 billion, so let's call it 20 or 25 billion. And it's going to be paid for by the ratepayers. It's not going to be subsidized by the federal and state government. At least that's the proposal to date. So that's going to significantly increase water costs. And the other challenge is, well, okay, we build this, what do we get out of it? What kind of certainty do we gain that we can improve the reliability of our water supply? That chart I showed you of the State Water Project, reliability declining, is that going to go back up where it was or not? And there are real uncertainties about that, and therefore, Kern County has not decided yet whether it's going to participate in this project and to what degree. But you'll hear more and more about that. There's a major environmental document coming out on that at the middle of the year. The other new and major challenge we have, I was describing where we need this 3 million acre feet, and we get some water from the Kern River, we have some groundwater, and then the balance has to be imported from the state project and federal project, and those supplies are being decreased. So as a result of those supplies being decreased, there's increased demand for groundwater. In addition, our agricultural demand has become more what we call hardened, in that it's kind of like a city is now, where you can't just turn off the spigot. It used to be where a large part of the county was planted to cotton, and in dry years some land may be fallowed. Well, now, we're almost wall-to-wall trees and dairies, which, cannot be fallowed in a dry year. So our demand is hardened, our supply has decreased, and this is a phenomenon that's going on throughout the state. It's not unique to us. So there's been increasing cries for regulation of groundwater, and all other western states, with the exception of California, have some kind of regulatory program for groundwater. We have not until now. In 2014, the legislature approved a bill called the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, which will require that all local agencies develop a plan, in our case by 2020, that provides for groundwater being sustainable, that is, at a stable level by the year 2040. And if the local agencies don't develop such a plan, then the state of California is going to come in and regulate it for us. And so our cities and districts are organizing to try to address how they're going to implement this new law, SGMA, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and it remains to be seen just how that's all going to unfold. There it is. This map shows there's 500 groundwater basins in the state. There's 127 that are listed as high or medium priority. Of course, we're high priority. This map shows that essentially entire Central Valley is either high or medium priority, and all of those basins are going to have to prepare one of these sustainability plans. So that's our second major challenge. We have the delta that somehow we have to address and fix, and then we have this new challenge with groundwater with our limited supplies, and the inevitable result is going to be that production from groundwater is going to have to decrease, and or our supplies are going to have to increase if we're going to maintain the same economy that we now have. That's all I have. Thank you.
So we're just going to take a 10-minute break now if you want to get up and stretch your legs, go to the restroom, and there's a coffee station in the back if you need a refill as well. Thanks. Serves as a director of the Bakersfield Association of Realtors and chairs their commercial investment group. He is a member of the American Society of Farm Managers and Rural Appraisers, and he is a past board member of the Kern County Farm Bureau. Please help me welcome Kevin Paula.
Got the clicker. I'm a little clicker challenged, so we'll make sure that goes smooth. Thank you, Elena. Good morning, everybody. My name's Kevin Paula. I'm an ag and land broker with Cushman Wakefield Pacific here in Bakersfield. I'm honored to be the inaugural speaker on ag land values here at IREM. To share the speaker's dais with such an experienced group of industry professionals is, to say, a little humbling and a little intimidating. And then you got Dwayne Keithley over here. I tell you, it's like, I thought this whole time I was going to have to follow Dwayne, and I was thinking it's like following Elvis. That would be pretty rough, so I'm glad we are all switched around. Commercial real estate's a high-powered business, and quite often a suit and tie is the uniform we wear. But when I go out in my world and talk to farmers and ranchers, like my dad, who's 93, still farming, okay? And I show up in a suit and tie, the first thing they would say is, who died, Kevin? Okay, where's the funeral? So in order to be a credible source in agriculture, I have to look the part. I'll be right back. There we go, that's better, huh? Thank you. Okay, when you think of the word forecast, What do you think of? The weather, right, Elena? And typically, what do we want from our forecaster? Well, we want to know, we know it's going to be hot in the summer. We know it's going to be cold in the winter, maybe a little foggy. But we want to know one thing. We want to know, tell me if it's going to rain. Or if everything happens this spring the way Elena says it will, when is it going to stop raining? Okay. Either way, there's a lot to pray for, and I guarantee our prayers will be answered. I remember the first time I heard the term El Nino. Can we say it together? El Nino. Okay. It's going to be a common theme. You watch. In 1983, Santa Monica Pier washed away. El Nino, the beaches were closed and literally redesigned by Mother Nature, the force we know as El Nino. Here in Bakersfield, we have a TV station advertising the official El Nino station of Kern County. They're predicting a Godzilla El Nino. I don't really know what that is, but you can see on the screen. That's what they're talking about. In order to get our minds wrapped around what El Nino really is, I want to go back to our friends at the Weather Channel for an explanation of exactly what is El Nino.
Welcome to WeatherScope. The biggest news this season, undoubtedly, the huge mass of warm Pacific water known as El Nino. Though it has caused torrential downpours in the Pacific region, El Nino has also dominated many tropical storms, preventing them from becoming hurricanes. In a dramatic development, the Weather Channel has captured the following satellite images of the mysterious phenomenon known as El Nino.
I am El Nino. All other tropical storms must bow before El Nino. Yo soy El Nino. For those of you who don't habla español, El Nino is Spanish for the Nino. And any of you hurricanes who are listening, step on up, because nobody can take El Nino. I challenge any of you punk-ass tropical storms to a no-holds-barred cage match. Anytime, any coast. I swear to God Almighty, it is time to pay the piper, because El Nino is coming for you, and it ain't gonna be pretty.
Obviously, El Nino issuing a challenge to all comers. Let's hear now from expert meteorologist and Intercontinental Wrestling Federation champion Ric Flair. El Nino had some pretty strong words there, Rick. It looks like he's after your belt.
El Nino, I got one thing to say to you, brother. You may dominate weather fronts all along the eastern seaboard, brother, but you wouldn't last 2 seconds against me and Junkyard Dog, Nino. I speak Spanish, but I'm coming to your burrito to kick your butt, old pal. Yeah, that's right. Bow before the power of El Nino. You want to be
a no submission fight to the finish. Ric Flair has applied the sleeper hold to El Nino.
No mas. No mas.
You heard it folks. First, unbelievable. Ric Flair has subdued the powerful weather phenomenon known as El Nino. I think you can look for a return to colder weather and more storms in the Great Lakes region.
Thank you, guys. I tell you, my money is still on El Nino. But I'm sure there are some weather forecasters out there that'll think otherwise. Seriously, whether it's weather, El Nino, rain, or snow, it all relates to one thing. It's all about the water. Water will be the biggest influencer for ag land values this year. It's all about the water. To fully understand how much water will be an influence on land values, we need to know where we're headed in this market. We need to know where we are now and how we got here. Taken from the last Kern County Ag Commissioner's report, Kern County agriculture exceeded $7.5 billion in value. That's a big chunk. Let's take a look at the ag land market snapshot for the last 10 years and see some of the crops that drive this market and historical values. Kern County grape vineyards, $1.5 billion of gross revenue in table grapes. 10 years ago, the values were about $10,000 an acre. and you can see now they're up pushing 30,000. Some new seedless grape varieties are being planted. If they were sold on the market, they might exceed that level. Pistachios, let's get cracking. Cracking they are. Pistachios are on the rise in Kern County with over 100,000 acres planted and a value exceeding over $400 million. 10 years ago, the value of pistachios were at about $15,000 an acre, and now 10 years later, the value is pushing $40,000. Citrus. We know lemons, Valencias, and our navels, but the world and we now know cuties and halos also. Whatever you call them, the mandarin easy-to-peel product's been a smashing success locally. About half the value of the local citrus crop coming from this little guy. Once again, the slide looks similar with the value 10 years at about $10,000 an acre, with appreciation pushing 25. If there were any new varieties of the cutie or halos on the market for sale, that value would probably push up into the 40,000 range. Dairy production, strong player in Kern County with almost $1 billion value. Milk production's a volatile industry and a lot of market pressure and competition from other states. Dairy site costs are consistent with open ground values, and cows are valued separately. Our company recently brokered a large dairy sale this past year with a higher than average price, but also consistent with this market. You can see these are values of the cows, and as they're making a comeback now, it's a little over 2,000 a head. Almonds, an industry valued at $1.5 billion and growing here in Kern County. Almonds are a favorite food worldwide, and demand is still growing. You can see once again a consistent increase starting at about $15,000 an acre 10 years ago, now exceeding and pushing up to $40,000 an acre. Let's dive a little deeper into the almond industry and see what makes almonds important to Kern County. When you look at the California almond industry, you see nothing but a winner with that over a million acres planted, and almost 900,000 acres producing. You see a crop with farm value of over $6 billion, and that's doubled in the last 10 years. That's a real winner. You factor in the market's increased worldwide demand for their products and keep up with the production that has almost doubled in California over the last 10 years. It's a real champ. And the fact that in the last 5 years, almonds have almost doubled in value per acre. Kern County is the state leader in almond production per county with over 400 million pounds annually produced out of the 1.8 billion pound statewide. We grow about 80% of the world's almonds in California, with 20% coming right here from Kern County. Nonpareil and Monterey are the leading varieties. People around the world are eating about 1,000% more California almonds than they did just a decade ago. China's booming middle class is driving this demand in China. The number of middle class households have doubled since 2006. They see almonds as a healthy snack and regard American food as generally less contaminated. California almonds are popular. Bag treat in China, convenience stores. Almonds grow on 13% of California's irrigated farmland, but only use about 9% of the state's ag water. Good soil is good soil regardless of where you find it, but what makes cropland selection crucial for orchards and vineyards to be developed is where these lands are in regard to the surface water irrigation districts and where they're geographically located. I believe good surface water rights and good water districts will be the difference maker for ag valuation. We've seen this map that Ernie showed us. This is the Kern River districts, the Central Valley Project District, the CVP Cross Valley Canal District, and the State Water Project. Okay, we break down regions of cropland in Kern County in the three areas: the southeast region, the northeast and central region, and the perimeter or the state water regions. I remember personally ag values in the 80s being $2,000 to $3,000 an acre and being fairly consistent for a long time to the millennium. And then in the last 10 years, we've really had some amazing growth. In the southeast and south central open cropland values, we were about $3,000 to $5,000 an acre 10 years ago and have increased steadily now to pushing $25,000 an acre. This has some of the best soils and is home to one of the best surface water districts in the valley, the Kern Delta Water District. In the northeast and central open cropland, you have similar appreciation that's pushing up to 22,000 an acre. This has some of the best grape and almond soil in the state. The open cropland or state water project land, it's a very large geographic area with a lot of different production variables. It's a little more limited in the fact that it receives so much surface water through the state water project. And I was talking to Ernie, that could be viewed as a state, as a water district or a no water district, depending on what their deliveries are. It's really been limited as of late. And there are some lands in the Cummings Valley and Tehachapi that has actually pushed these values this high. So the future factors influencing value, obviously, as we know, is water, of course. And water is involved with some of the things that Ernie mentioned. California Sustainable Groundwater Management Act of 2014. This is really going to be the wild card that dictates what farmers can do and can't do in terms of their irrigation practices. Ultimately, it could result to a farmer having good wells, good crops, good orchard or vineyard, good soil, and possibly being limited on how much he can run that irrigation pump to take care of his investment. So that really remains to be seen as it becomes implemented. And we have drought water management and also global political instability that's across the world. What happens here is an economic impact all over the world and vice versa. And so it's mindful that we be smart and responsible with our growth. So the conclusion and the forecast. Water is the key to what happens to value. So good soils, but might have restricted or limited groundwater. You might have a slight devaluation in these cropland prices. With land with ample groundwater and good soil, we should see a stabilized value for the year with slight change. And good soil, good groundwater, good surface water, and I think that's really the key, is going to actually possibly push our all-time high record prices. I'm bullish on this scenario playing out for this year to come. In conclusion, agriculture is in great hands. The stewardship of the industry has never been stronger. We continue to supply the world with a uniquely diverse and superior quality food product. Farmland here in Kern County is in strong hands and land values reflect that. But as Ben Franklin said, when the well is dry, we know the worth of water. When it comes to ag land value, it's all about the water. So in closing, I just want to say, when you sit down to eat your next meal, thank God and thank a farmer. Thank you.
All right, so for our next speaker, it's another new topic this year. We're talking oil and gas and its relationship with our local real estate market. Our next speaker is Mojid Mojibi. He's the president of San Joaquin Refining Company. Originally from Tehran, Iran, Mr. Mojibi spent several years in England to study hotel management and catering before immigrating to the United States in 1968. While attending Bakersfield College, Mo took a job as a janitor at West Coast Oil Company. He eventually graduated from Cal State University, Bakersfield, with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration and Finance. Today, Mr. Mojibi is well known in this community as the president of San Joaquin Refining Company, vice president at Tricor Energy LLC, Tricor Refining LLC, and San Joaquin Permian LLC, as well as in real estate and business ventures in farming, medical offices, commercial and residential real estate, and entertainment. Please help me welcome Mo.
In 1968, I arrived in the United States from Iran with $18.25 and very little command of English language. Like many of you, I love to fish. And I took every opportunity to go fishing with my friend in Kern Canyon. As we would drive through the canyon, there were signs for turnouts. Well, I used to read that as trout. And I would say, this is the greatest country in the world to live in. Government tells you where the fish are. Coincidentally, there was always a parking place. Please excuse my command of English language. It is not one of my greatest accomplishments. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss oil and gas and problems related to oil and gas. We will look at our subject matter by answering three most frequently asked questions. The first question is, why the oil prices have fallen to such a level, low level? In my opinion, there are four major reasons. Geopolitical unrest in Middle East, a new oil reserve discovery through the 3D technology, that's three-dimensional seismic technology, Canadian oil shale, and Bakken oil discovery, and the most important one, fracking. Geopolitical unrest. Today, Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates are fighting a proxy war against Iran and Russia in Syria and Yemen. Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates have tremendous cash reserves. By keeping the prices of oil down, they have put a tremendous pressure on the Iran and Russian's economy. Russia supplies majority of the gas to Europe, and Iran supplies large volume of crude oil to India and China. One of the reasons that oil prices is to the low level that they are is unwillingness of the OPEC country, predominantly Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, to cut back. The next reason is a Canadian oil shale. There's an enormous reserve of oil shale in Canada. Oil shale is very expensive to produce. It's approximately $55 to $60 a barrel to produce, and environmentally it's not really acceptable. As long as the prices stay to the level that they are, production of Canadian oil shale will not be feasible. The next, just bear with me, please. The next is hydraulic fracking. Fracking is a process by which rock formation that hold oil and gas are fractured and additional reserves are produced. Fracking has got a bad publicity. So why don't we please take a minute to look at the upcoming tape.
Hydraulic fracturing is a time-tested, proven technology. It's been used in more than 1 million wells worldwide for the past 6 decades. This is how it works. First, once the necessary infrastructure is in place, a drilling rig is assembled and inspected in accordance with the required safety and environmental standards. Only once we are satisfied that all the required standards have been met can drilling begin. When the well is drilled, multiple layers of cement and steel casing are inserted to create an impermeable barrier between the well and the groundwater. The well is drilled vertically until it nears the shale zone. Just prior to the shale zone, the well turns and horizontal drilling begins. The Empire State Building extends 1,453 feet from base to tip. The depth of a well can be over 8 Empire State Buildings. After another cement